Of all the helicopters I've flown over the years, there's been 7 or 8 different models. This Bell 47 is still my favorite helicopter of all times. It was a very, very nice machine to fly. Hi there, I'm Dan Ireland. I'm with the Ministry of Natural Resources Aviation Section, sitting in an old Bell 47, which is where I got my start flying back in the mid-70s out of Oshawa. I haven't been in one of these helicopters for 36 years, I think now. As I said, I started flying these way back when. First job was up in the Northwest Territories with a mining company and a machine very, very much like this one. And then moved on through the years. Presently working for the Ministry of Natural Resources since 1999, flying a very different type of helicopter from what I'm sitting in. An EC-130 is what I'm flying at the moment, which is a turbine, very, very sophisticated machine. Unlike this one here, which is an old piston engine. Things have come a long ways in aviation. How's that?
That was excellent, Dan.
Okay.
Excellent. Absolutely excellent. Why don't you talk a little bit about the controls, maybe?
Okay.
If you could.
Sure.
You don't have to go through all the technicalities, but maybe a bit of comparison on the handling of this
Versus
chopper
the new
compared
ones?
to the new ones.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Sure.
Just give us 1 second to reset here.
All right, we are good. Okay. So just sitting in this Bell 47 helicopter, I realized over the years, almost 40 years, that the seat belts back then were much shorter than they are nowadays, because this barely fits around me. Other than that, or including that, there's been also changes in the way helicopters handle. Nowadays we have hydraulically boosted controls, turbine engines. This one was a piston engine with 160 horsepower or something like that. And I'm flying now a helicopter with 800 horsepower. Airspeed in this particular machine was about 85 miles an hour versus 130 miles an hour in my new EC-130. We have to worry about carb heat to prevent carburetor icing back then. The throttle was totally manually controlled, whereas nowadays you turn it on and you forget about it. It's all governed by itself. Whereas these old birds, you were always twisting the throttle, usually to the open position, to get as much power out of it as possible. Again, the visibility out of a machine like this was great forward, not so much looking down, as you can see the floats there. Heat in these things was also an issue. Very hot in the summertime, and you'd freeze in the wintertime, of course, because of the lack of heat from the engine. So yes, many things have changed. Just, it's kind of fun to be sitting one of these old helicopters after decades of moving on to bigger and better equipment. This is still one of my favorite helicopters of all. Okay.
Awesome. Can you just repeat that last line for me? You said it's still one of my favorite helicopters of all time.
Yep. Of all the helicopters I've flown over the years, there's been 7 or 8 different models. This Bell 47 is still my favorite helicopter of all times. It was a very, very nice machine to fly.
Awesome. Do you have any amusing anecdotes, close calls you could share with us?
Exciting
Love to
stories?
hear all that stuff.
Well, I don't know if I should. I'm still working for the M&R.
Yeah. Keep it PG.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess my first job, my first job in the mid '70s was a diamond drill slinging operation, and that was an eye opener, quite an eye opener for me. I was 19 years of age, flying a Bell 47, slinging diamond drill equipment up around the Northwest Territories. And I remember that old helicopter was working very, very hard to get that load off the ground and positioned onto the hilltop that we were drilling at the time. I remember taking off the racks, taking the battery out of the machine once we got the machine started to lighten it up, taking the seats out, basically stripping down the helicopter down to the absolute minimum weight, including about 2 gallons of fuel in the tank here just to keep the weight right down. And I remember the load was heavy. I was a new pilot, but we managed to do that load and many others thereafter. But it was just one of the tricks of the trade, I guess, was getting the helicopter as light as humanly possible to maximize the load you could carry. So I'm not sure if gravity was a factor that day, but it was a heck of a load.
So, what would your usual cargo flying the Bell be, and what would be some of the more unusual cargo you've carried?
In this type of helicopter, yeah, the typical load back in the day, back in the '70s with helicopters was drill rods in the baskets, external loads, slinging drills and the various bits and pieces up to the drill site, flying the drillers up to the hill. We used to fly supplies around as much as we could fit in the racks. There wasn't any real specialty work like we have nowadays in the M&R. We didn't do any fish stocking, or these machines didn't really offer themselves or lend themselves to external bucketing work like we do now with our new helicopters, because the payload in the water bucket would be very minimal with these types of older machines. So it would be mostly just carrying around personnel and gear and drill rods, as I said, equipment and whatnot.
Were you ever involved in any rescue missions?
I've done several rescue missions over the years. Not so much with this helicopter in the early days, but over the course of my career, I've been involved in several search and rescues, and for the most part, we found the people we were looking for. I remember up in Baffin Island one year, a bunch of locals were out doing some seal hunting, and the piece of ice they were on drifted off into the Baffin Straits and heading towards Greenland. And I got a call at 2 in the morning, frantic call from the elder in the town. It was in Pond Inlet, asking for my services to go out and pull these people off of the ice floe. They were quite a ways off into the ocean. So I fired up the helicopter. My engineer and I went out and luckily found everybody on the ice and flew them to the mainland. And I think there was about a dozen of them or so, and got them off the ice and flew back to Pond Inlet. That was one of the few times the low fuel light came on in my career. We were just barely able to get back to Pond Inlet. 10 minutes, whatever, with the fuel left. We don't make a practice of that.
So why don't you take us through some of the pros and cons of flying the Bell? So what's good about it? What's bad about it?
Okay. This Bell 47 helicopter, as I mentioned earlier, was one of my favorite helicopters to fly. Just basically, the view was, quite impressive. You really had a sense of flying in this. It's like you were sitting in a chair, just suspended, and the view was unobstructed all the way around. They were noisy, of course. That was a disadvantage. They were underpowered compared to nowadays, what we have to work with. They had terrific tail rotor control because of the open tail rotor. So you had great pedal authority, which was great for doing turns and whatnot, and close to the ground. Another advantage to them was the fact that they were a smaller machine and you could really land in very tight places versus the larger machines, and that was an advantage. Mind you, some holes you could get into quite nicely, but when you load them up with equipment and drill rods and miners or forest firefighters or whoever you had, getting out of the hole could have been an issue because of the lack of power. So you just really had to fly these things. Nothing was automated. Navigating was all, finger on the map. No GPS back then versus nowadays. We got 2 or 3 GPSs on board at any one time. So you really learned how to navigate, the old-fashioned way. So yeah, that was just kind of the way it was back then, and just that equipment didn't exist, and we didn't know any better, so we worked with what we had. The seats on these old helicopters were basically a kitchen chair with an inch foam on it. A little hard on the rear end. Nowadays, it's all about ergonomics, and we have these beautiful seats, and you can fly 3 hours and feel pretty good. Whereas this thing, I remember, not that you'd get 3 hours in the air with these, they only had a range of 2 and a bit, but your seating was not the most comfortable. You can see I'm sitting here now, and again, I've changed since the mid-70s, but it was not the most comfortable seat I've ever sat in.
That was really good, Dan. I'm just gonna.
All right, so you locked on like his facing his body, upper body kind of deal.
Yep.
Because
I got
I'm
him
just
all
gonna be able to
squared
see like.
Have you got it? The massive chest and the.
Yeah, I got you. I
The
got you. I
biceps?
got you all squared up, really.
You better use the wide angle for the shoulders.
Yeah, it is a wide angle, really wide angle.
No, not my gut, my shoulders.
Okay.
Okay.
Go anytime you're ready.
Okay? Ready? How do you start a bear race? Do you know? Ready, Teddy, go.
Ready till you go.
Anyways, okay, the controls of a helicopter haven't changed at all from the 1940s when this machine was assembled to present day, which is 2014. The collective is this control here. It's used to add pitch to the blades, and that'll create lift, which will move you upwards through the air. So that's the collective. The cyclic is this one in the middle here, and it actually tilts the swash plate, which is an assembly just below the rotor head, and it'll tilt the rotor disc through various mechanical connections. It'll tilt the disc basically whichever way you want to go. So that's the cyclic. And the pedals at my feet here are anti-torque controls. We call them tail rotor pedals. They actually add pitch to the tail rotor blades through a cable assembly in this particular helicopter, creating pitch on the blades, which counteracts the natural torque of the helicopter. Torque is the opposing force to the rotation of the main rotor blades. So as the main rotor blades turn this way, the helicopter wants to turn the other way when it's in the air. So you need your tail rotor at the back to counteract this natural torque phenomenon. So as I was saying, the tail rotor controls in this particular helicopter were very, very good because the whole tail rotor was out in the open. There was no vertical fin or whatnot to impede the flow of air through the tail rotor. So this is one of my, you asked earlier what I really liked about this helicopter, and that would probably be one of the things, is the really great tail rotor authority one had flying, hovering especially, which is where the tail rotor does most of its work, hovering on the ground. And most helicopters do tend to do a lot of their work close to the ground. It's just the nature of the beast, moving things, slinging things off the ground into smaller confined areas that you can't get an airplane into. So helicopters do a vast majority of the work close to the ground, and having a good tail rotor is really, really key. So that's those are the controls in a nutshell. Oh yes, and also now was the throttle that I mentioned earlier. One had to keep manual control of the throttle. When you pulled in pitch, you'd have to add fuel to the engine to account for that drag on the rotor. The more pitch on the blade, the slower the rotor wanted to go. And we like to keep the rotor at a fairly constant speed, so you were always manipulating the throttle, rolling it on when you're increasing power and rolling it back down when you lowered the collective and reduced power. So there's a lot of this. Basically, you were operating all your limbs and keeping an eye on everything, gauges, obstructions in the air, on the ground. So you were busy. It's a busy job, and it still is. It's gotten a lot easier nowadays with the automated fuel metering systems and the automated start. You just throw a switch nowadays, and the helicopter will start itself. It's hydraulic controls, much easier to use. Things have really, really changed over the years. So for the better, for the most part, I would say. But I still do like the old Bell 47 is still a terrific machine, and the folks here at the Bushplane Museum and Sault Ste. Marie have done a wonderful job restoring this helicopter, and it looks really good. I think I'm ready to go flying now. So I was just remembering one incident I had, my first commercial flight in the Bell 47 helicopter, flying out of Calgary with Bow helicopters. I was headed up to Fort Smith and areas north to do a drill moving job. And flying into Edmonton, just south of Edmonton, I was attempting to get a hold of the Edmonton Tower, and it turned out I had a full radio failure, which basically meant my one radio on board stopped working. So I wasn't too sure what the procedure was. Being a young pilot, wasn't terribly experienced with radio communications, period, much less a radio that failed. So I did what any 19-year-old helicopter pilot would do. I landed in a farmer's field just south of Edmonton, and went into the farmhouse and asked them if I could use their phone, which I did. He was very, very gracious and allowed me to call the tower and get clearance into the zone and landing at the municipal airport, which was right in downtown Edmonton. So as fate would have it, there happened to be a Bell Jet Ranger helicopter flying from the south into the municipal airport. The gentleman, the tower man at the airport, was talking to this fellow, and this helicopter pilot offered to guide me into the municipal airport, which was great because I'd never been there before. This was going to make my dilemma somewhat easier to deal with. So I fired up, and sure enough, the helicopter was overhead, the Bell Jet Ranger, which was a nice turbine helicopter, one that I certainly was hoping to fly at some point. And he had a functioning radio, so I basically just followed him into the municipal airport, and he landed on the ramp right in front of a avionics hangar, which was very, very convenient and very nice of him to position me right there. So I landed and shut down, and the guys got my radio fixed up in that afternoon, and the next morning I was ready to continue my journey to Fort Smith in the Northwest Territories. So that was just one of many exciting days in the helicopter world, and one that I can share with you. There's several that remain with me. Well, with the M&R, we've been very busy with this time of year, of course, with moose surveys, and we do elk work as well, telemetry, looking for elk, collared elk, collared caribou. We do stick nest surveys, looking for these large nests from anything from osprey to eagle to heron. And the reason we do it in the wintertime is these nests are usually filled with snow, and they're much easier to see because they are large nests. They call them stick nests because they're fairly large, and they're much easier to see from the air when they're full of snow. This winter, 2 or 3 feet of snow in them makes them easy to find. The moose surveys we do in the wintertime, obviously for the tracking of the animals. With the fresh snow, any tracks you see are going to be very fresh, very new, and the moose, chances are, will be very close to those new tracks. And the elk surveys, the caribou work, we again use telemetry equipment on the bottom of the helicopter, and these animals are collared, so we listen to that frequency on board the helicopter, and we're able to find the animals, again utilizing tracking in the snow to do so. So that's our work in the wintertime. Summertime, it's obviously forest firefighting. There's quite an example of the equipment we use for that here in the hangar. The helicopters are used primarily to fly crews into the fires. Our detection aircraft will locate the fires, and then we'll launch from our bases around the province and with our firefighters, drop them off, and they'll unload their equipment and attack the fire from the ground. After the 415s and the Twin Otters have attacked it from the air, we're there basically to mop up and fight any spots that require fighting. We also do polar bear work up in the James Bay, Hudson Bay area. We do goose surveys up on the coast, Hudson Bay, James Bay coast, which requires a helicopter to round up the geese, and the guys on the ground set up the nets, and we basically just corral the geese into these nets and process them. And oh my goodness, photography flights, we do lots of that. We do night vision goggle work as well. With the new equipment we have, we're able to do night working with the COs, conservation officers, and doing that kind of work. Again, photography work, just flying personnel around, we do that quite often. There's just a huge list of work we do. Moose aquatics in the summertime, looking for likely moose habitat for feeding and stuff, and that gives us an idea of how the moose are faring in the summertime as far as food, and that's mostly aquatic-based surveys, following rivers and streams and water courses and whatnot. So there's just actually no end to the work we do. It's year-round. It's interesting. You never know from day to day what you're going to be doing. So it makes for a very interesting day, interesting week. I've been with the M&R since 1999. So yeah, that's 15 years now. I'm in my 15th year, and I came to the M&R with 23 years experience in the industry, flying around Canada from basically British Columbia to Labrador to Windsor up to Pond Inlet and on Baffin Island. So I spent a lot of time flying around the country, getting experience, and then joined the M&R in '99 and haven't looked back since. It's been great. I'm out of Sudbury, and I have been since '99. I was fortunate enough to work several contracts there. I think five contract years out of Sudbury, and about 10 years ago, I was able to obtain a full-time job, and don't regret my decision to move over to the M&R. We've seen a total transformation in our fleet. I'm just going to speak to the helicopter division. When I got here, we were flying around the old Long Ranger, the Bell Long Ranger, which is the big brother to this machine, which was a terrific machine, but it was old, slightly underpowered. It was great for some things and not so great for others. But a very reliable machine, and we went. I saw those go onto the auction block and replaced by the A-Star helicopter, which was Air Speciale at the time. It's now Eurocopter. So we moved into the B2 or the A-Star, whatever you want to call it. It has several handles. And then most recently, we've moved up again. We've upgraded and improved, and now we're flying the EC-130 helicopter, which is again a Eurocopter helicopter, beautiful, high-tech, fast, carries lots of people, and so I've seen a lot of changes from, like I said, the old Long Ranger to the EC-130 helicopter. It's been a major progression from good to better to best. And the 130 is, I find it great. It meets all our needs. I mean, there's not going to be one helicopter that's absolutely ideal for everything, but this EC-130 does everything it's supposed to, and it's a really good compromise for the varied work we do. I wouldn't even say compromise. I would say it's a good choice for what we do. Things that haven't changed. I don't know. Well, I guess the one thing that hasn't really changed is our sense of family. I know this sounds a little corny maybe, but the M&R is definitely you do have a sense of belonging to the organization, the aviation side of it is 90 years old, and there's a sense of belonging to that impressive pedigree, I suppose, and that has remained constant since I've been here. But I think mostly it's more about change than about being static. We're forever moving the markers ahead and the sticks. We're just moving the sticks ahead down the field, and I just feel that it's more about change than what's staying the same. And change is good, but again, the thing that is constant is the sense of the air service and the people, the engineers and the pilots and the managers, and we just feel we're a very tight group. When we're conducting surveys with wildlife, we obviously try to reduce our impact on the animals. For example, doing moose surveys, we've gotten very good at identifying what sex the animals are, and we're not having to loiter too long over them, and to create less impact on the animals. So we've got our observers and the biologists and the pilots have gotten very good about quickly identifying the animals and moving on. So there's very little interference with their natural day, and we try to carry that through with all the wildlife surveys and caribou and polar bears and stuff. We try to just limit our impact on the animals. And as far as the helicopter itself goes, they're more efficient, fuel-wise, generating more power with things. So we're actually hopefully burning less jet fuel with these newer, improved models, and they fly faster. So you're getting to where you want to go quicker and spending less time in the air doing so. And so those are small things, and we're try to make as little a footprint on the on Mother Earth as we can through various means. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people in, let's say, Southern Ontario, not to not to stereotype folks down in the GTA, but there's a lot of people in Ontario that don't know that there is an air service, that we have 32 aircraft and bases and hangars and whatnot, and all the work we do on their behalf. Because let's face it, our presence in Southern Ontario, the GTA, isn't there. I mean, apart from the air shows and whatnot, and the odd dump fire or tire fire we do, and the odd grass fire, there's a whole lot of unawareness, if that's a word, of what we are and what we do in the firefighting and the wildlife management and the forestry and geology, geomorphology, all those interests that we have, and most of that is up in Northern Ontario, north of Canada's Wonderland, I guess, and so I would say to the general public that we are here, and we've been here for 90 years doing what we do, employing hundreds of people, thousands of people, and just taking care of things, taking care of resources and people, and when it comes to fires, and making sure people are safe in the summertime. And, so I say that would be my one concern is just the general awareness of the aviation service. Yeah. This job is important to me for many reasons. I think I was as a young lad, I was meant to be a pilot. I used to dream I could fly, and I know lots of people have had those dreams, but it's always been a dream of mine to fly, and I just can't imagine doing anything else after 37 years. It's just what I do. It's I don't want to identify me as a person with my job, but sometimes it's like that. It's who I am, and it's what I love to do still, and I just find the work very interesting. It's varied, it's challenging. You get to see a lot of Ontario, and in Quebec sometimes we go up and do some work in northern Quebec, and it's just my wife will tell you that's just who I am, and there's a lot of time on the road, but sometimes that's a good thing. Positive separateness, my wife calls it. No, I am happy to say it's been uneventful for me in the last 15 years. There's been, the odd weather concern, possibly around Sault Ste. Marie. You're always going to deal with the squalls coming off of Superior. That can be interesting flying. But no, it's been happily a very good 15 years, and nothing personally has created any more gray hairs than I would probably normally have. It's been really good. We've had some really fun times with the caribou. They're always interesting to get them into the nets, and that involves some really interesting flying, fairly fun and aggressive, shall we say, to get these very skitterish creatures into the net, and that's exciting. There's been lots of exciting times for me, but nothing too scary. The Agawa Canyon, the Lake Superior shoreline, I don't think it gets a whole lot better right here, right out of the Soo. I also love the Killarney area, the La Cloche mountain range. I've flown through there, the Bay of Islands and the North Channel, and there's some beautiful territory there to fly in. But I think right around here you've got some pretty nice country with the hills to the north and the Superior coastline, and it's a toss-up for me between the Killarney area and the shore of Lake Superior. We do on occasion, we water bucket fires. We have these collapsible Bambi buckets, 130 gallon buckets, and on occasion we will be requested to pick up a load or several loads of water from a lake and go and dump the water onto a hot spot for the firefighters. And we train every year for that. Sometimes we'll use a long line, 100-foot line with a bucket on the bottom. Sometimes we'll just attach the bucket to the belly of the helicopter and do a short line attack. But most of the water bombing is done by our good friends in the 415 with their thousands of gallons of water versus our 120 gallons. They're usually a lot more effective. And the Twin Otters too. Let's not forget the Twin Otters too. They're very good at putting out smaller fires as well. Yeah, the helicopters are basically used to carry the personnel into the fire, as we're able to land pretty much anywhere and drop the crew off as close to the fire as we can. And water source, of course, would have to be one of our concerns when we're dropping off our 3 or 4 man crews. So basically, the fire, if it's any size at all, will have already been air attacked. So the firefighters are just basically worrying about keeping that fire under control, getting all the hot spots, and that's where the real work comes from. Is the sweat equity that goes into a fire is the overhead bombers knock it down certainly, but they give the firefighters on the ground a chance to get a line around it and make sure that it's out. And it's those deep burning fires that we worry about, because they have to be attacked on the ground to dig them out and get the water to them with their pumps and whatnot. And that's when the fires go out, is after the ground crew has worked on them.